Good morning, everybody. I got to say it's 9:35 here in the East Coast of the United States, and I welcome everybody around the world. It's amazing to see folks from Vancouver, San Francisco, all the way out to India, and Ecuador, and Spain. That's pretty incredible when we think about how we're all here together in one spot, one place together. And I couldn't be happier to be here today. I welcome you to my session, which is to find your awakening through authentic inclusion and to unleash the possibilities for all. My name is Darrin Tulley. I am the founder and chief of possibilities at Ignite Happy. And I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm really excited to be here as part of this amazing event, this conference about unlocking the power of belonging. We're here together, and we're here from all over the world in this venue. I'm so honored to be contributing to such an amazing event. And I start you with one message just to kick us off is that I believe there's a light inside of you waiting to be unleashed, a beautiful light I like to call your happy, authentic self. That's just sitting there ready to joyfully unlock your full potential. And that's something I'm going to build out on today. When I think of belonging, I think about being a part of something bigger. I think about that happy, authentic self that I just referenced, and being of something bigger, yet being who we really are, being our true self out in the world, being accepted, being looked at with open eyes, allowing our light to shine on this world in a different way, in a unique way. And I want to share some stories with you today. In fact, my plan for today's session is to share some vulnerable stories with you that are actually quite raw, because it talks about my awakening through authentic inclusion. And it allows to shed a light, hopefully for you, to embrace vulnerability with me today. And I plan to leverage those stories along with a couple of exercises to really help you explore where you are with inclusion. And then hopefully to brighten your eyes or open your eyes maybe to see differences from a different lens. And really to set you down your path to igniting the light that's inside you. And what I plan to do is I share these stories. The stories start from within here. They start from here, and then they actually get expanded out to the world. What I would like to share with you today is how I started my journey, and then how I started to take risks, and how I started to take chances along the spectrum. And my stories will reflect that. My first story will be how I started from within, and then how I practiced that at home, how I learned some more and practiced at work, and then the community. And then out in the world, and then out into our surroundings. And dare do I say the universe. It's been quite a journey. My intention is to share this to help really stoke you onto your path and to help open your eyes. I'm still learning, and my intention is to share and to provoke in a good way. So let's get started. Let's get started with my first story. My first story jolted my way of thinking. It was several years ago, and I was at a D&I event. D&I event was a diversity and inclusion event where there was about 25 people there. And I was one of about, 5 white males. And I came into this event with a purpose. I came in working every day, living every day to bring out the best of myself and those around me each and every day. And I thought I did a pretty good job. I thought I was kind and supportive, loving to folks, and really thought I was helping people along. That was my intention until I realized I was actually part of the problem. And here is when I realized my bubble actually burst. And what I realized from there is I started to feel my awakening, and I started to come alive. I started to see things differently. And it's here where I call the story "My Bubble Burst." And it started with this D&I event where it was an immersion event. It was an immersion event where we literally were together for 4 days straight. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, and really got to know each other. You could say we kind of got forced to know each other, and we left home. We stayed overnight at this place. We left work aside, and we really connected. We really got to know each other. We really got to see where people came from, where they were born, what their families were like. We got to see what they're made of, what their interests are. We got to see what roles they do today, what roles they want to do. We really got to know people in a whole different light. And it was becoming really safe to the point where we wanted to get to know people at a deeper level. And we could even meet with people outside of the, the 9 to 9 sessions that we had working together. And we got to know each other a little bit differently. And I remember, playfully getting to learn different card games from different people. And it was really a nice glimpse to see how people grew up a little bit differently from different cultures. And it started to get really comfortable and safe. And we started to really bond and build some relationships. And, at that point, we started to share some struggles, and we started to share some frustrations. And that's where I started to think, well, we could solve this. We got this. We could work together and fix these things. And it kept going. The struggles and the frustrations kept going. And I started to feel it. And I couldn't believe it. And I still can't believe it, that there's, the level of oppression that happens in this world today, where people are feeling mistreated or bullied just because they're different. Or maybe they're getting, pulled over because of the way they look, or they're treated as a lesser than for no apparent reason. Some people are looked at differently. They're looked at with shame, with doubt, with fear, even inappropriately so at times. People are overlooked for or passed over for opportunities they thought they were deserving of, either a promotion or another opportunity, just because they were different or because of the way they looked. And I've been in situations where you've been overlooked just because you're with your partner or your spouse and you're buying a big purchase, and it's like you're not even there because of who you are. And I've recognized too from this event, what I heard, which was also troubling, was that people were saying they took many steps to get to work just to fit in. And that really struck me too, because people had to fit in, had to be somebody else. And it's not people being their happy, authentic selves at work or anywhere. And as I was thinking through all these stories and people sharing their vulnerabilities, it started to hit me. It started to hit me pretty hard. It was really heavy. And I started to self-reflect and explore. And I had to explore within myself. And I started to ask myself questions. I'm like, am I living out my purpose to bring out the best of myself and those around me every day? Am I really doing that? And I started to feel like I was in this bubble. And I started to feel like I was swimming blissfully in this bubble. And actually, what I realized, I was swimming ignorantly in this bubble. I wasn't aware of all of this oppression that was happening around me, because I could just walk into work with all the steps and just be me, and be me to an extent where I thought it was working. And I said earlier, and I'll say it again, I am and was part of the problem, until I realized I wasn't helping everybody out as I thought I was. I was helping the people that were similar to me, that had some commonalities to me, that were in my bubble. And I recognized that I was doing a good job within my bubble, and that I started to get frustrated. I just started to feel shame. I started to feel guilt. I started to see that I actually had some unconscious biases I was unaware of. It was frightening, and it was terrifying. And my bubble burst. And I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was found out. I felt like the air in this bubble that I was living in was gone, and I didn't know what to do. And it was actually the third day of this D&I event. It was the morning, and I asked if I could approach the group. And all these thoughts and feelings I thought about throughout the night, and didn't sleep well at all, probably. And what struck me is I started to share with folks, and I started to cry. I cried, and I was very emotional. I broke down, most likely, if you want to call it to that level. And what I was saying is, I let people down. I wasn't honest. I wasn't being my full self. I wanted to bring out the best in everyone, and I wasn't doing it. And I needed to commit to change, and I needed to start there by owning it. And I had to be vulnerable, and I was crying, and people were crying in the group, and people were with me and helped me through it. And I couldn't believe I went through with it. I couldn't believe that I went through that struggle. Even it's a minor struggle compared to everything else that I've heard. I sat back on my chair, and I started to reflect. I was dazed. I was a little bit confused. I was just kind of shocked about what just happened, and I started to realize that what was happening is actually, the people that I was holding back held me up. There was immediate forgiveness. There's love right there, right then and there. And at that point, I'm still a little dazed, and I was looking across the room, and I caught eyes with this woman, and she was looking at me with nice big eyes. And what I was noticing is in her eyes, I could see her talking, and I could hear her saying, there's hope here. I could feel the sadness, yet I could feel the love at the same time. And normally I would have looked away. I would have been uncomfortable. I would have not gazed into her eyes like that. And I felt like I belonged. And I felt like I belonged as myself. And it was amazing. And it was this woman here, Nikia. She is an amazing individual. She's even started up a company called Black Bias, which is iblackbias.com, with a bunch of other amazing people that I have to admit, shamefully, I don't know if I would have met these beautiful people, these amazing, talented folks, had it not gone through and opened my mind to what authentic inclusion really looks like. And that means meeting what people are and opening up to differences and being maybe a little uncomfortable at times. And at the end of this 4-day immersion event, we walked around and we asked each other in a circle, actually, and asked, what are we going to do differently? And I committed to change. And I wasn't going to just say, hey, I'm going to do this and then walk away and go back to my life and be the same. I wasn't going to just talk about it in a D&I event and only talk about it there because maybe it's only safe enough there. We got to talk about it out loud. We got to talk about it out in the community, wherever we go. And what I recognized is during the sessions, I was using a pink pen all the time because I'm sure it was reminding me of my daughter and some other things as I was trying to think about the future of women and the future of just everything here, equality, et cetera. And what I remember is that I was using this pink pen, and I said, I'm going to use this pink pen because I think this is how I'm going to remind myself. This is going to be my accountability tool to remind myself to be different, to be myself, and to welcome differences all the way around. So I use this all the time now. I use this to write notes. I use this to write thank you notes to amazing people that I'm just grateful for all the time. And I signed contracts with this. And I know some of the attorneys say you can't use pink. I've said that's how I signed it. And then we move on. And I have to say it's been a huge difference maker because for me, I've embraced the world in a different way. I was uncomfortable. I'm still learning and growing. I'm not perfect at any of this. I just know that I got to step in and I need to continue learning. I need to keep trying. I need to invite more. And I invite you in to explore with me to let your vulnerabilities be part of this solution as we think about unlocking the power of belonging and really expanding your bubble. Because when I realized my bubble wasn't bursting, it was actually expanding. Think about that for a second. The air that I was breathing expanded. The beauty around me expanded. The people I interacted with, the possibilities were endless because everything else opened up. Everything expanded, and it was the beginning of my awakening, and my bubble didn't burst; it expanded, and I welcome all the love and the new friends and the new possibilities that are ahead. And it starts from within. It starts recognizing where we are and exploring maybe that we do have an unconscious bias. I did, and I'm working on it all the time. And I'm not perfect. My intentions are good. And I'm genuine, and that gets us a long way if we practice that to help others and help ourselves. And as I go to this next story, the second story, this is part of the journey where we need to learn. We need to continue growing. I often hear say, "Hey, how can I help? How do I get involved with ending racism? How do I get involved?" And I'm like, "Well, we got to learn. Like, what do you want to do? Where's your passion? Where's your focus? What books do you want to read? What D&I event do you want to be a part of?" Because from this point in time, I went to additional D&I events. I went to read different books. I've been part of business resource groups. I've advised different groups. I was taught how to be an ally. I became a person that could actually be a voice for someone else because people taught me how to do that so they can get their own voice and be powerful at that point in time. And there's this book I actually read. One of the books that I read was this book called 4 Days to Change. And it's my second story where it's called my apology. And in this story was an apology to my wife. And yeah, she was into the apology a little bit. And I have to say, when I read this book, it actually mirrors one of the D&I events I attended. And it's an intense read. It was a powerful read. It actually kicked me in the stomach 4 times. I had to sit back. I had tears in my eyes, and I had to complete 4 apologies out of this book. And this is a year later after my initial awakening, because this is a continuous learning journey. And it's just one of those things. I said, I had to go out and talk to these folks and make it right, because I care and I love for these people. And with this story, you're probably asking, well, what is this about? What is this apology about? And it's about listening. Something as simple as about listening to each other. And when I was reading this book, I was recalling a scenario with my wife. And my wife and I have a really good relationship. It's strong, it's loving, it's solid. We communicate well together. We rarely ever fight. And we always agreed from the get-go, we wouldn't even swear at each other, because we knew that was a slippery slope. So when we did get into disagreements, what would tend to happen is I would try to help the conversation along, and my wife would typically repeat herself a few times and then raise her voice a little bit at the end. And what's striking about what's in this book that I read, in another article that Nikia shared with me as well, is that there's differences with how we communicate with each other. Like for me, I like to fix things. I like to maybe avoid conflict, maybe just to move it forward, kind of keep the peace, which was a reference in both the article and this book, where my wife and maybe others, like her, she wants to get into it. She wants to seek the truth. She wants to figure it out. And that's when I read that, oh my God, it kicked me so hard in the stomach, because I wasn't listening to her. I was trying to fix things. And it really struck me that I was not listening to the point where I needed to be present for her, where she wanted me to be, in what role she wanted me to play for her. And it really, again, I felt horribly, because I felt like I was limiting her expression, limiting her ability to share emotions freely, the ability to really get messy into this topic. And what I recognized and realized when I was sharing this story, it definitely resonated, because when I shared this with her, like any good marriage, she finished out the apology and explained why she raises her voice at the end, because she just says, I want you to listen. I want you to get involved in the discussion. I want to stew into it a little bit. I want you to understand, and then we'll figure it out. I don't need you to fix everything. I'm very capable of fixing things. I don't need you all the time there. I welcome it, but not all the time. So it was an aha. And it might sound pretty straightforward, yet it's a different level of inclusion. And it's a safe way, because I did this at home. I recognized something I didn't see before. And I think we belong in this conversation together in a different way. I'm not perfect at it. I'm still working on it, to be honest. And I have to say, this is an interesting place. When you're at home, are there opportunities to work on ways of belonging and inclusion? And we'll continue that as we go through these stories. Now, in this third story, and then we're going to do an exercise to take a break from the stories. Then we're going to do exercise after the story. This third story is at work. So we started from within, practice at home a bit, and then we expanded out. We expanded out to the workplace here. And the irony here is I'm often hired into different roles to fix things. I'm one that will actually identify problem areas and will help address and solve, turn organizations around into joyful workplaces. And it's a passion of mine, and I love it. How ironic, given the last conversation. And in this story, I was given an opportunity where the results weren't as good as we wanted, and we were all working separately and not working as one. We're not working well as a team. And what I recognized is we needed to become one. So this story is called, reading them to become us. When I typically take a role, when I typically take on different opportunities, I'm very open to work and understand what's happening. So the first 90 days, I like to reach out to people individually, in groups, whatever their comfort level might be, to just engage, just to ask them, what's going on? How are things going? What's working well? What's not working well? What's frustrating to you? What are the opportunities? Like, where's the gold? Where should we go from here? All these questions to try to engage and understand what can be done. And through those conversations, I have to say, there was a lot of, hey, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, your team needs to, or they need to answer the call faster, they need to turn around quicker, they need to make sure that the results are error-free. And what struck me from those conversations, it was all about my team. It was all about my organization as the blame. And it didn't feel good. I got to tell you, it didn't feel good for anybody. And it felt like anytime I would raise a concern or a flag, it felt like I was defending myself, that I was passionate. I was viewed as passionate while I was trying to dig into the truth, if you will, like the last story. And what I thought was quite interesting is that there wasn't one person that actually said, hey, you know what? I got this problem I'm working on and I need your help. Or, hey, I know this is contributing to the overall problem and I'm working on it. This is what I'm doing. Or, hey, or even ask the question, what can I do to help as a team versus, hey, good luck. You guys got to fix this stuff. So it was pretty daunting. And after 90 days, there was a long list of opportunities, maybe ideas, maybe some were right, some were wrong. And I wanted to bring it back to the team. And I wanted to see what they thought. I wanted to figure it out together. I wanted to see if those are the right things. And I didn't want to come across as telling them what's going on. I didn't want to come across as I have all the answers, because I don't. So I was looking for a sign. I was looking for something that was going to help me to communicate to this group and to start working together. And literally, and it's unbelievable. Sometimes when you actually just, maybe it's in your dreams, you're thinking about something and all of a sudden an idea pops in your mind. That happens sometimes. This time was out in the world and I was ready to look for it. And I probably drive the same direction every time. I'm a creature of habit, which is something that I got to check into, but I'm a creature of habit. And I probably drove by this distribution center, I don't know, probably 700 times over the last couple of years. And I believe there was a sign out there for me to see until this one day I was ready to see it. And there was a sign out there that was huge. It was probably 20 by 20 or 20 by 15 feet tall. And it had a 4-letter word on it. It had a 4-letter word. It was THEM. And it had this symbol on it. It was a cross out symbol, just like you would see on like a no U-turn sign. For folks entering that building at the distribution center was, there's no more them. There's no more them. And it basically said, we're not going to accept that anymore. That's the way I read it. I have no idea if that's how the team used it at that distribution center. Yet I drove by, my head probably swiveled around. I turned around, took a picture, and that's the picture on the screen. And then I went into work with a huge smile. I said, this is it. This is the sign I was looking for. This is the sign. This is what we need to do. We need to practice not using the word them. And I asked that morning with the management team, I said, hey, can we try this? I explained the story. I said, can we run an experiment? You know, the king of continuous improvement is someone that says, run the experiment. His name is Rich Sheridan, who runs Menlo Innovations. And he's like, run the experiment. So he's in my head. I'm saying, team, let's run the experiment. And they all agreed. And we shared that with the team. And then the team was a little uncomfortable. And we started to do a report out that day, actually, of our results and what was going on. And folks jumped in and started to use the word them and you. And I politely would ask people, hey, we just agreed not to use that word. Can we try to just replace it with other words? Like I get it's proper in English at times. Yeah, I think the way we're using this is actually putting each other down. It's not helping us get the results we all want. You know, this bigger goal, bigger purpose that we have. And to my delight, through frustration, through the experiment of about 3 to 4 weeks, I started to see people change. People started to come to the table with problem areas that they found themselves. Some of the ones that I mentioned or that I caught in some of the interviews, and some that I never would have found on my own. And it was beautiful because people were discovering them on their own. And then they were bringing them to the table so we could prioritize. And so we could prioritize those together and create opportunities. And it's only when we actually let our guard down did we actually bring each other closer to be able to get creative and to discover and to be able to unleash the things that we need to get done as a team. And to my delight, we doubled our customer satisfaction scores. We improved our results, and we really stabilized the business to the point where it was ready to take off. And to me, the big learning here that I got from the story was, how do we seek a greater purpose, and how do we become inclusive, and are there ways to do that? And sometimes it's the language we use with each other. Sometimes we self-rationalize away our ownership of things, and we lose trust with each other, and we blame each other, and we lose friendships and relationships, and we certainly are not belonging as one. And as we started to do this, we truly did unlock something special, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. I think it'd be good for us to jump into an exercise. And before I do that, I just want to just check the chat here for a second. I love the comments and love you all. I appreciate it. Let's do an exercise here if we can. I'm going to jump back in just so I could properly set this up. So what we're going to do is an exercise around readying them to become us. Then what I would ask you to do, if you could, if you have a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper in front of you, if you could make 4 columns for me. 4 columns. And the first column, if you could just label it we, us, with some lines, or you don't need lines, you could just write underneath it. And the second column, for now, leave blank, just leave blank. And then the third column, label it them. I guess the irony of that is to label them, I guess, is kind of funny. And then you have another blank column. What I want you to do, if you don't have a piece of paper, just maybe shut your eyes and think about it. If you do have a piece of paper, really want you to think about it too. What I want you to be is honest, because what I would like you to do is think about, if I say a category or grouping, to think about somebody in that grouping and put them in one of the columns. When you think about, are they someone that you believe you would say, hey, they're part of us, they're part of my people. We do these things together. They're kind of we as part of I could call them we because the different attributes that we'll talk about in a minute. Or is it them, like they do this, or you'll get what I'm saying, because there might be people, for example, this first one is family members. Do you have family members that you think of that, yeah, they're my people and they get me and totally they're on my page, and you would put their name in the we column? And is there somebody, maybe there's somebody in your family that you feel like they're out to get you, or not, they're not there for you, they're not trusting, or they're not bringing you in, they're not inclusive, or maybe putting you down? Maybe take a second and think about that and put a name in either both columns or just one. And I'm going to read off a bunch of groups. So I'll give us I'd say about 5 to 7 seconds for each group. So don't worry about getting it right now. This is just an exercise to start to get you to become aware of and think about this, because my purpose for this is for you to walk away and try this in your life as you start to think about the words you use, especially when you use the word them. So the next category is neighbors. How would you categorize your neighbors? Is it a them? Are they always on your lawn? Does the ball always coming into your yard? Are they really loud next door? Or is it we, like, yeah, we have them over all the time? How about friends? How do you view your friends? Are they there for you? Which people are there for you? How about his or her friends? Like, oh, I'm just friends with them because it's her friends, for my example. Do I have that, or do I embrace them as my own because they mean so much to her and they become our friends? How about the community? When you view people in your community, how do you view them? Maybe it's the comment we just heard, like the U.S. Congress. Like, are they part of them, or your local government, or maybe folks that are stepping out, leading to Black Lives Matters movements, and how do you view that? Where would you put them in these categories? How about your work colleagues? Like, I just gave you some examples where, hey, my team's good, your team's not so good, you're the problem. So when we don't really collaborate together, there's problems. We lose out on innovation. We lose out on a lot of things. Like I said, the other work teams, how about, people you work with, or maybe folks you're in a club with that maybe come in from a different angle, maybe don't have your back, or maybe they have your back fully. Maybe they're fully supportive. How about people like you? Do you have people like you? You know what I'm saying? Like people like us, PLU. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. How about not like you? Maybe people you're uncomfortable with. Maybe when you see somebody on the street you're afraid of for no apparent reason, but you're just afraid of them. So hopefully this is the start for you to start to identify where do you categorize in your mind? Because if you think about it, we're trained to act a certain way from the day we were born. And I developed my unconscious biases over time, either based on how I was taught or the society I was built into. And I have to have my own thought. I have to really unlock those and rewire myself. And I have to do that through how we attribute and how we actually look at these words. So as you think about the we us column, how would you actually think about how you would label those people? Like, what are the things that make people like you, or that you're comfortable to say, like we? You know, like for me, jokingly, I love the New York Yankees, and whenever the Yankees win the World Series, for example, I'm like, oh, we played a great series. Like I didn't play a game. Like my wife makes fun of me. She laughs at me. Like we. It's just an affiliation, I suppose, and the passion I have for the team. As an example, and maybe you have other attributes that are, to me, generally negative, or maybe it's out of fear or unknown when you think about the attributes that might be applied to them. So let's do the same thing. Let's write down the attributes that fit into either category. It might fit in both as you explore this. Maybe it's because you love or care for these people. And again, you don't have to just write it next to exactly the we us that you wrote down. You could just put it into the column, and then you could think about it later and reflect on that. Do you have a shared purpose, a common goal at work, in the community, at home, with your friends? How about gender? Do you have a different feeling based on gender? How about feeling like you belong in a group, like you're part of a club or part of a team affiliation, or like there's times where I didn't know where I belonged, because I just, as I go through this journey, I feel sometimes like I am a misfit until people pick me up, like the story I shared with you earlier. How about ethnicity? How does that feel to you? Like, can you say all groups fit into we us, or are there some that are them? Maybe check in on that. How about we're all human? Maybe that's something to think about and leverage when we are thinking about them in a different way. How about orientation? Are you comfortable with people maybe with a different orientation than you? How do you think about that? Where do they fit? How about affiliation? Again, it could be sports, it could be work, it could be group, it could be a club. How about respect? Do people respect you? Do you mutually respect back? These people that are in either column, is there a respect item or opportunity? How about empathy? Do you share a common empathy? Do you understand in a different way? Do you empathize with people in this group? Or is there an opportunity to empathize with people in this group? How about some people are just eccentric? Not sure how to connect with some people. I've been called eccentric, and I think it took me 40 years to embrace that, and that's okay. How about do you have the same beliefs? How about biases? Do you have any to think about? Do others maybe in these groups that you're referring to? And how about trust? Do you trust folks in this group? Or maybe there is implicit trust. And then maybe even ask yourself, if I don't have trust, is it because I don't trust myself about how I am around certain people? Or maybe I'm not owning my part with something to make something right until I can get comfortable? I would ask you to think about that too. So again, this isn't meant to be, hey, we figured it out. It's meant to help you start to think about where you are with inclusion. How are you aware of maybe the words you're using, maybe subconsciously using these words in a way that you never noticed before? What I would really encourage and like you to do from today is think about that column that you use the word them. Think about that. So just when you say them, when you say the word them, I'm sorry if it's going to be annoying to you. It's the struggle that you might need to go through, like I did, to understand, okay, why am I calling them them? And just pause for a second and maybe reword that if you think it's actually done in a negative way, or think about how to apply and identify a particular attribution so you could practice authentic inclusion. You can identify that group and practice how to think about bringing people closer so you can actually expand your bubble and so they can expand theirs. And to me, that's belonging, being a part of something bigger outside of ourselves and welcoming that change and really in an open way and to apply these attributes together. And Melinda Dransfield is speaking at 11:30, and I'm really looking forward to her session because it's about judging less and loving more. And I couldn't, this is a great way to continue this thought process to say, how do I go judge less and love more? Because I think that ties in nicely here. I'm looking forward to that session, Melinda, and looking for that. So I'm just going to check out for a second just to see if there are any questions or any chat items. Everybody good? I see a couple people on screen. Everybody good? Thumbs up. Dan, you're good? All right. All right, everybody. Let's go back in. So what I'd like to do is go back in. Thanks, Takia. And just think about this next story. And this next story expands out from where I was, right? From here, from home, where it's safe to practice inclusion. And then in the workplace where maybe I had a title where I could, command a different level of attention. And it takes even more courage and risk to be able to do this in the community and put yourself out there in a way that people might not even know who you are, other than you have a purpose to really help others. And again, that I think my purpose at this point. This story in particular is really hits close to home to me because there's a different person at one of the D&I events that I went to, and there's another person that I care dearly, my daughter. They're both on my shoulder during the story. They're both on my shoulder while I was going through this experience, and it was about celebrating being different. And that's what the story is called here. And when I was at that D&I event, I mentioned to you that we got close to each other. We got to know a lot about each other, and it was incredible. And I remember sharing some stories with an individual about bullying, about being mistreated, and how I dealt with it when I was growing up, and how loved ones that I know were going through it. And it was pretty emotional. And she shared the same with me, how she dealt with it and how she got picked on and how she was mistreated. And it was hard. It was just hard because it brings up a lot of wounds. And the thing that stuck with me is that she said to me, she goes, Darrin, what we could do is honor those present and honor those that are not present. And I thought that was amazing. Again, straightforward and simple. And it mirrors, I think, a Stephen Covey quote that she referenced. And my daughter actually, too, had a similar notion where the day before I was flying out on a trip to test this out, she was on this shoulder and going this trip. And what we were doing is we're going through the Dunkin' Donuts line. For folks that might not know Dunkin' Donuts, it's a coffee shop that has a lot of great treats and donuts and stuff like that. And my daughter loves her treats. And we were driving through the line and getting treats. And she noticed the woman that was collecting our money. And she had this beautiful blue hair. And my daughter looked at me and said, oh, Dad, look at how beautiful her hair is. I love it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And then she says to me, she goes, Dad, what I love about it, she's celebrating being different. And I couldn't believe that she said it. I was in awe. And I looked at her and I'm like, please never change. Please don't let society break you down. And my heart grew that day. And the only visual that comes to mind is like the Grinch. When the Grinch's little heart kind of grows, that's kind of the visual I'll give you. I was moved. And when I was standing in line to fly to Austin, Texas the next day, I was going to give a presentation. And I love Austin. And I was presenting that day. So I was all suited up. I was ready to go, ready to present. Literally was going to land and be on stage within 2 hours. I had to be ready to go. My mind was ready at that moment. And what I noticed in front of me was this woman in the front of the line as we're about to board. And she had this bright red hair, like visualize bright red hair I don't know if you've ever seen the Trolls movie, which is a fun movie, a lot about happiness. And they had all this vibrant hair all over the place. And this woman had this vibrant red hair that reminded me of the Trolls movie. And then I sat there for a second and I'm like, oh, wait, I have I have my friend here from a D&I perspective. I'm like, gosh, would I have reacted that warmly to this person in my head had I not gone through this awakening and immersion event and open conversation with other people that were not like me? And then I had this person, my daughter, saying, "Oh, Dad, she's celebrating being different." And it just was so warming just to stand there as I was looking forward. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was my subconscious mind, but I think it was a real person came right up to me and says, "Need a splash of red?" And I'm like, what is he talking about? It's 6:30 in the morning. It's a little early for a glass of red wine, I'm thinking. And I guess I'm already looking for the presentation to be done in my mind. And then I looked forward and I started to think a little bit more. I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's talking about that woman in the front. And I just kind of awkwardly chuckled and ignored him for a minute. And then he says something again. He goes like, why did they have to do that? And I sat there and I'm like, okay, let me find out what's going on here. And I said, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry, I'm not following along. Could you tell me a little bit more of what's happening so I can help you out? And he said, well, that woman up there with the red hair. So then I turned away and I looked up at the beautiful red hair. And I had two people on my shoulder. I was blessed. I had my friend from D&I saying, honor those that are not present. So I'm seeing that like, she can't even defend herself. I mean, it's my opportunity to do something here. I also have this pink pen, by the way. That's also an accountability thing going on in my head to Nakia and all my friends from the D&I event. And then I have my daughter saying, Dad, she's celebrating being different. It's beautiful. And then I said, I got myself into this by asking. And now I turn back and I look at this gentleman. And this gentleman is a middle-aged white man like myself. He has these khakis on. And he has a golf shirt that's embroidered with a college football team in the state of Texas. I won't say the college university name. And I'm wondering, why is he saying this to me? I'm like, is he thinks that we're part of a group just because we're both white males traveling to the South and I'm in a business suit ready to present or something? I was a little confused. So I turned back to the guy. I said, I'm sorry, sir. Are you talking about the woman with the red hair? He says, yes. And I said, well, I'm not sure where you're getting at. I think it's beautiful. I think she's celebrating being different. I think it's amazing. I think we need more people to do that, to celebrate who they are, their authentic selves, and put it out to the world. Put it out in the world in a productive way, of course. And he says, well, I don't know why they have to just put it in our face. And he went on and on and on. And I said, okay, sir, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I got to check for understanding with you and help me. What am I missing? I'm trying to understand. Maybe there's some statement here that I'm missing. And he just put his hands in the air and didn't say anything. He didn't have any words for me. And I looked forward. And again, I felt something overcome me. And I said, I have to make a point. I think it's probably this pink pen in my pocket. And I turned to the guy and I said, excuse me, sir, hope you don't mind me bringing this up. But when I think about this woman in the red hair, I think she's celebrating that she's different. We're all different and unique. We're all special in our own way. And I said, by the way, you have this college football shirt on. Maybe she's a Texas Tech Red Raider with that red hair, and she would despise that you're different with that shirt. Maybe she would feel the same way. Yeah, we need to rise up. We need to elevate and be a little bit bigger than that together. And his shoulders shrunk, and I didn't want to put him down. That wasn't the point. It was more of a growth element for both of us. And we had an amazing, wonderful conversation into the plane. And I hope he grew that day. Certainly, I know I grew that day. I grew to make sure I was honoring people that are not present and helping people and helping myself accept that I'm different and helping other people accept that other people are different too. Because there's such a power with that for us to understand where we are with accepting our own differences. Because if we know we're different, then why aren't we accepting others for being different, for being real, for being authentic? Certainly, if there's disagreements, then we have to work through that together. And it was an interesting experience nonetheless. I was out in the community, and it was reflective of who I want to be by bringing out the best in myself and others around me each and the other day. Like I need to step into the dialogue. as a white male, I need to step in. People will ask me, why are you a voice? And I'm like, why not? I have unconscious bias. I am working on it, and I want to be vulnerable. I want other people to join me if they're ready and willing, and that's where we are. And that's where this continues to build. And as I continue to build out to the next story, I'm going to go through this next story, and then we're going to do we're going to do a fun exercise, and then I'll close up with another story, and then we'll open it up for some questions. Now, this next story is a little raw. I have to say it up front. It's a little raw. I think it's important for me to share it the way I remember it. And, forgive me if anybody takes offense. It's a situation where I thought there was some life-threatening components at play here. It's a moment where I saw a beautiful light inside somebody. My wife and I were going out, and we're going out to enjoy some music with another couple. And we really love music, and we were going to go out and dance. And we're going to dance to this, one of our favorite bands locally in Connecticut, which is called the Acoustic Marsh Pit, if you're ever around. And for some reason, we decided to go to another venue. I think we missed the timeline. I think we misread that. And we went out to this restaurant. We had a wonderful night where we had some small plates and tapas and some wine. And it was about 10 o'clock. And we're thinking, what should we do? Like, where do we want to go? And all of a sudden, the lights started to dim. It felt like it was getting more crowded. And then all of a sudden, boom, the music went on. I'm like, where's the music coming from? And all of a sudden, you look back, and there's a DJ in the corner. There's actually a section cleared out. I'm like, yes, this is where we're supposed to be. We're going to do some dancing. Like, I love to dance. I like to groove. I like to get into some fun music. I love to really get out there and have a little fun. Sometimes we just got to get out there and not worry what people might think about what we do in life. And certainly dancing is a good reflection of that. So we got out there, danced, and we started to get warm. And two of us went outside, and the other two kept our table. We went outside to get a breather. And I was talking to one of the folks that we were with, and I said to her, I said, wow, this is awesome. Just a great time getting out there. And I started to jump into actually the D&I event that I talked to you earlier today. I started to share the similar story, the similar components, the power of differences, how I had unconscious biases. It's just how it was, just how I just needed to do better. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this man comes up to us and starts yelling at us. This guy starts yelling at us. He's of decent build, bigger than I am, has Middle Eastern descent, and he starts yelling at us, saying, "Are you a racist? Are you a racist? Are you a racist?" And I stood there, wide-eyed, I'm sure, and I felt something. And what I felt initially was the spit coming out of his mouth with anger and rage flying on my face. And then I felt something else overcome me. And I wasn't about to fight. I'm not a fighter. And what I realized, I needed to stand in here. And I said to myself, I believe and I see a beautiful light in this person. I got to help him out. I got to figure this out. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm not the person who you think you are, or who you think I am, excuse me. I'm here to help. I'm here for you." And the woman that I was with said, "Yes, he was just telling me about all the things he's doing coming off of this D&I event and how he learned, he's growing, he's not perfect." And she's like, "Do you want a hug?" And he's like, "Do I want a hug? Especially not from this guy, this white guy. He's been mistreating me, bullying me, holding me back from all the dreams I've ever had." And and he starts crying and getting more angry and frustrated. We were crying, we were together. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry that this has happened. And I personally am not responsible, although I know I'm part of the problem and I need to help fix this. And we went back and forth. There was highs and lows for this dialogue. It was intense. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just had to believe that something good was going to happen. And I did. And it did. There was this amazing event at the end where the three of us belonged together. We hugged each other out. It was filled with love. It was filled with hope. And it was filled with belonging. It didn't matter where we came from. It didn't matter what we looked like. We just knew there was struggle that we needed to resolve. And we were there at the moment. That was a moment in time that I'll never forget. And I tremendously grew from that day, and I hope the others did as well. And I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was really impactful in the sense that we really need to see the light in other people. Because I believe, like I said in the beginning, I believe there's a light in all of us. There's a beauty in all of us waiting to be unleashed if we just give it a chance. And if we look for folks, look at them differently with curious eyes. I think so many of us react and jump into emotion and get furious or frustrated or back to the them. We say, why are they doing something? Why are they doing that? Why are they trying to fight me? Why are they calling me a racist? And when I reflected a little bit about that scenario, I was asking myself, why did I stand in that situation? A lot of people have asked me, why did you stand there? And I said, I belonged there. I needed to be there. And I also remember, as I self-reflected after that, is if you remember what he said, it was different than maybe what you might have heard. But I think what I would have heard initially is, you are a racist. You are a racist. He didn't say that. What he said is, are you a racist? Are you a racist? He got curious. He shared his emotion. He wanted to stew in this conversation. He wanted to see what was going on. His life was spinning around, and so was mine at the time. It was amazing. And to me, when in doubt, in any situation, gosh, we're in a pandemic, right? There's so much uncertainty and doubt. There's just so much concern. Many feel like they're losing their sense of worthiness. People are losing their sense of joy. Like, we need to seek it out. It starts from within. All this joy, all this inclusion, all this power, all the possibilities starts right here. And when we start to actually illuminate others, we need to show genuine interest. Because when I stood there strong, calm, willing to have the dialogue, I told the man I care for him and I loved him and I'm there for him. And I did that maybe initially because it was life-threatening, yet I believed I was there because I was there to help him too. And I think when we actually show genuine interest and bring the best out of people, bring happy, authentic selves out of people, and I've seen it time and time again. People amaze you. People have amazed me time and time again. It's just incredible. What I'd like to do now is kind of step out of that because it's pretty intense. And I'd like us to do something that's a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun. So thinking back to my family, we really love being together and we love traveling. It's something that I really love to do. It gives me peace. It gives me calm. I love being with them and wherever that is. Excuse me. And we went out west for a trip. It was a special trip because I met some amazing people out there. Some folks that are there for me all the time out in Phoenix. I grew from that trip on many ways. And I remember I was along this journey as you know, I started out at home in the community and worked in the community and I was kind of continuously learning and growing and reading things. And when I was out there, we went out to the Grand Canyon. Gosh, if you're out in that direction, please see it. It's amazing. You talk about living with wonderment and awe. I mean, that gives you joy and gratefulness just by being present of something so large and beautiful. It's just amazing. I also recall going out and just going to different areas around Arizona in the different parts. And we actually took a tour guide. We took a Jeep tour out in Sedona. And I remember we were just riding around, seeing different mountain structures and areas and all the different colors. And I remember we stopped here in front of this picture here. And I remember the tour guide saying, let's get out, let's stretch. And if you feel like you need to stretch, go ahead, stretch a little bit with me. Clear your eyes. And what he said is describe the picture. Describe the picture in your own words. And I started to describe this in a certain way. And what I'd love for you to do is just think about this picture for a second. I'll give you 10 seconds to look at the picture and just describe in your mind, what do you see? And if you don't mind, just write one word that you see here, your initial take. Well, what's something you see here in the chat? I don't have the chat open, so if you could just, for others to see, that'd be great. I'll give you like 5 or so seconds. If you dare to be courageous and be vulnerable with me. So then, just as an example for me, I went to describe this and just talk about the beauty of the surroundings, the whole infrastructure. There were animals around. There was, there's some beautiful trees, even growth on the mountainous terrain up on the top, in the middle there. It was just a beautiful day. And I was just describing kind of the outer surface of everything that I saw here. And he's like, that's great and all. He's like, what else do you guys see? And I'm there with my 2 kids and my wife. And he said, okay, look at this differently. Look with kid eyes. Like, you got to have kid eyes. You got to look at this differently. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm sitting there like opening my eyes larger. Like, what am I missing? Like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I can't see what he's talking about. I'm like, so all of a sudden my kids look at each other and they belt out what they see. And what they see is actually a picture of something. And what they saw was Snoopy. Think about that for a second. And the guy goes, yeah, that's Snoopy. That's exactly what we call it here in Sedona. That's Snoopy. That's what we call it. I'm like, oh my God, I totally see it now. I didn't see it before. I needed to have a kid eye or set of kid eyes. I need to get curious in a different way. So I've shared this picture with other events that I've conducted in other workshops. And I grow each time when I hear people share what they see. And if you see something, please put it in the chat because I want to read it and see what else you find in this picture. So we saw Snoopy. I'm sure you all saw some fun things too. Now, this one person, I was at an event and they said, hey, it's the crocodile from Peter Pan. And it was a learning event from one of my early speaking engagements. I'm like, no, it's Snoopy. And I'm like, who am I to say no? This is what they saw. This is what that beautiful person saw, to replace the word they that I just used. That beautiful person just said crocodile from Peter Pan, and I apologize. And I had to own that. And I said, it is. When you look to the left, it's the crocodile. Look at even with the tongue sticking out. And if you actually turn your head to the right, it looks like an old man laying down taking a nap. And then I went to another event and I had an audience member so excited about what he and his wife found, and he sent me the picture. He found a bunch of things. I'm like, oh my God, he found 2 fists, saw an anteater, he saw a castle that was sagging, 4 schoolgirls, a smiley, even a head of a dead alien. How about that? I can tell you, I can promise you this, I didn't see any of that. And the thought around this is that people see things differently. We're all trained and we are all from a different place of the world. We're all born into a unique spot. We all grow differently and we all are open to seeing things. And we learn things, millions and millions of things that get shuffled away in our brain. And we start to kind of live forward in our subconscious minds. And that's what I was doing when I was back to that picture where all I saw was rocks and beauty outside on the surface. I had to get within myself to open up my eyes. I had to get my inner self, which is the child inside of me. I had to be silly for a second. I had to be curious. I had to live with wonderment. I had to live with childlike eyes to really see what I was missing. And the part of the story for all of us is, how do we get conscious again? How do we step out of our subconscious minds? Because we're doing this with the people we love. We're doing this with people at work, where we might be mistreating people on, just not by design, but maybe the words we're using, or maybe how we're treating people and not welcoming people. How about in our community? Do we think we're better than other people? Or we live in a certain way because we feel entitled? Like, we're living in our subconscious minds. We got to step out. We got to get conscious again and let our childlike wonder really thrive. And we still have to be an adult, but as we think about it, as we age, there's so much we're processing and dealing with, especially today with the pandemic and COVID-19 and all the uncertainty. So what do? We have to start to ask ourselves, what would a child say? What would a child see? Just like that tour guide. That's something to think about as you're entering into different situations, going forward. There's one study I'll share with you from the creativity workshop, is the group. and they do a study, and the study they do is about creativity, and they talk about creativity as something that changes over time. And the question that they ask kids is like, they ask certain questions around how they would react and do they display an ability to be creative. And they did the same thing to adults. The average adult probably around 35 or 40, something like that. I don't know exactly. It's something like that. And what amazed me from that learning is that about 98% of kids that were 5 years old had the ability to be creative. So essentially, we all have the ability to be creative and to get curious and to really say, yeah, I could think of a creative idea or a thought, or actually get creative and look at this picture. And when you think about the result for the adults, hold on to your hats here. It's 2%. 2% of adults displayed the ability to be creative. Have you ever said, "Oh, I'm not creative," and you kind of move on? How about ask yourself, how can I get creative? Because there's so much upside with getting creative. There's so much ability that opens up your minds in a different way. It respects the differences, that there are other people that can see things differently, or other people that could do things better. Like I started to take up guitar lessons with my daughter, and I got to tell you, I love music even more because now I respect how well people play, guitarists play. I'm still struggling at it. Yet sometimes it's the struggle that allows us to be open to change and to grow. And it's finding those areas that maybe are easier to struggle at, so then we could actually struggle at the harder things in life. And I think getting creative is certainly an important aspect for us to live going forward. And that's a key learning as well coming out of this. And coming back from this trip, I love to look into quotes and get inspired. And one of the quotes that I had read coming back from this trip, and there's just too many coincidences in the world. This quote was from Pablo Picasso, and he said something like he did his best painting when he was 5 years old, and then he was trying to paint like a 5-year-old the rest of his career, the rest of his life. I mean, put that into perspective for a second. That he acknowledged that, and he said that out loud, that his best work was when he was 5. How many people would admit that? It's just one of those things. It's all for you to think about. Now, what I'd like to do is get into this last story, and then I'll close it up, and then we'll open it up for questions. This last story, as you know, I've been looking at differences. I've been welcome to differences. I've been open to some silly thinking, even to allow my childlike eyes be filled with wonder, because to me, that's transcendent happiness when we're able to think that way. And I remember a moment with my daughter, and I found a sign or a symbol in life that I wasn't expecting, and it really solidified that I was going through an awakening. And there was this moment with my daughter that I would call it as my story, my enlightened happiness. And we were sitting there one day together. My daughter was doing her homework, and she was doing a great job. We're at the counter, and I'm sitting there working, thinking I got to get all these emails done because all these emails are coming through at work, and I just need to make sure they're done, and I feel like I'm productive. And then my daughter looks at me and says, "Oh, Dad, I'm finished with my homework." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. That's great." And she's like, "How about a treat for a reward for finishing my homework?" I'm like, we don't do that kind of thing during the week. And I went back to my phone, not doing it either really well, hanging out with my daughter or doing the work very well. And then she said, "Come on, Dad, I did really good. And, maybe we could share something." I'm like, "Okay, what are you thinking?" And she started saying cookies. I'm like, "No." Cake, no. Ice cream. I'm like, "No, all this is just too sugary." I'm like, how about something a little bit healthier?" And she's like, how about an Italian ice? I'm like, "Okay, that sounds pretty good." I don't know if you know what Italian ice is, but it's like they're packed ice crystals, usually with flavors. And she's like, how about watermelon ice? I'm like, "Well, that sounds a little healthier." I'm like, "Let's do it." So we got out the Italian ice, and we took the lid off and put it to the corner here. And I went back to my phone, and she's like, "Dad, you want a bite?" I said, "Sure." Had a bite. It was delicious. And then she finished it off, and she's like, "Dad, I'm all set. I'm all done." And I'm like, "Are you happy?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was good." And I put my phone down, and then I looked at her, and she's smiling. I'm like, "Wow, I love my daughter." And out of the corner of my eye, I see this thing. It's upside down. This lid that you see on the screen. and this lid is upside down, and I turn it over. And once I turned it over, I started to feel something overcome me. And I started to share this with my daughter, and she opened her eyes like it was right. We were in front of the Disney castle for the first time. And she was so excited. And I was so excited. My life overcame with joy, and all this stuff came out. And I realized at that time, I was the one upside down, not the lid. I had to recognize that it was over there for me to see. It was always there. I just had to be ready to look for it. I had to have my childlike eyes ready to see it. And what overcame me is, oh my God, I realized, yeah, I love this daughter of mine, yet the joy and happiness I have is right here, to include what's there outside of myself, like my daughter or like all of you. Like, how do I include you in? Because that's where joy is, to bring out the best of all of us. And when I saw this one-eyed smile, I have to say to you, it's a symbol that's reminding me of so many things. It's reminding me to stay present, put the phone down, be present with the ones you love. Accept the happiness that's inside us, accept the differences that are inside us, or the way we look that is different, or maybe we're eccentric. Accept that. So when we accept that, we kind of allow ourselves to be calm and be in the moment. We allow for these moments, like you see here with my daughter and I, just thrilled beyond belief. And you might see things in the world that you never saw before. And that's what I started to see. I started to see hundreds of these one-eyed smiles. All it is that something that's round and something that has a curve to it. It could be a branch and a rock. It could be a sunset. It could be a leaf. It could be birds flying by. It could be a turtle and fish. It's amazing what's out in the world if you take a look, if you get curious. And when I think about this, what brings me much joy now along the journey is each one of these findings is unique. Just like you, just like all of us, we're all unique. And it gives me joy every time I see it. And that gets me even greater joy when you guys find them and send them to me. Because I'd say 80% of these are found by other people and sent over to me. People that have found happiness, that feel like they're worthy, people that feel like they're all in the world and able to see this beauty in our surroundings. It's a constant reminder, like, join me on that so we can live our possible. Because I want you to live your possible. I want you to really unleash what you're capable of. And it's that light inside you. And it all starts with where you are. And I really need you to think about where you are. Because I was just in that bubble, if you remember in the beginning. I was in that small bubble on the top. And then that circle around it was me expanding my bubble to start to welcome other people in, to start to welcome differences. And it was beautiful. And then I started to expand it, as you know, out to work, out to the community, out to the universe, out to look at our surroundings. Things that are there, we just have to be ready to look for them. Things that you thought were once unimaginable are possible. And when I took this picture, I drew this on one of the plane rides coming back from a different speaking engagement. And I said, wow, this is fun. I said, it's a bunch of WGs as you go out and expand your bubble. It continues to expand. And I said, let me explore a little bit. I'm sure there's more here than I'm missing. And I shared this with my kids. And I said, what do you guys see? And my son's like, hey, Dad, looks like a Wi-Fi signal. Like, see how far out you are, how well connected it is? I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. It is all about connection. How we work together, how we invite each other in. It's all about connection. In doing so joyfully and welcoming. Then my daughter said, hey, Dad, yeah, look at that. The farther you go out, the bigger smile you have. I'm like, oh my God, I never saw this. This is beautiful. It's so true. As we expand and we become more vulnerable and we welcome other people in, so much is possible. And so much connection is there if we're ready for it, if we're willing to be silly sometimes, and we're willing to open ourselves up. And to me, as I close this up, I start to feel like there's such opportunity here. There's so much opportunity for us all to shine on this earth. We're all here. We all belong. And some of the things that people share with me, I'll share with you along the way, have really moved me. And I hope it moves you, where people say to me, I've had other people say to me with tears in their eye, I'm like, why are you crying? Why are we crying? She's like, because you're bringing hope. It's possible. I can have happiness and I can be included. I can be my happy, authentic self. I've had people realize it is in me, and myself included. My love and my happiness starts here. It might seem so obvious, yet it's not looking for something. It's not buying something. It's actually connecting from here with all of you, with people in the world, with things in the world, with my daughter. It's not consuming happiness. It's actually being present, and it's here. It's not looking for it. It's just here. It's ever present. People have said to me, "You've changed my life." I'm like, "You've changed mine." This is not one way. It's a two-way gift. And people have invented new things. People said, "I've learned things I never thought I would. You gave me the chance." I started things from nothing. I never thought it was possible. Now people are saying anything is possible. And I've heard people say, friends of mine in Phoenix and other areas will say, "Thank you for the voice I didn't have." And they have a powerful voice. And they're out there speaking. They're out there with the key, making a difference. You make a difference. And the key is us being ourselves. I've had feedback even for today. Be you, be authentic, be genuine. And people will work with you. And I believe that. If we are ourselves, our happy, authentic selves, we could do so much. And lastly, what brings me joy is getting people involved in this together, feeling like they're part of something bigger, being able to really shine on this world. And to me, like, think about the people in your life that actually illuminate you, that make you brighter. Hold them close. And then become one of those people when you're ready to actually illuminate other people in your life. Because when you start to make other people brighter, we all are going to shine. And that's the opportunity ahead of us, because I believe you are possible. I want you to live your possible. It all starts here, and we all need to actually embrace where we are. We need to expand our bubble and to continue to push this out. I have one more message for you. I believe in you, and the light inside you that will be the difference. It's your turn to get vulnerable with me and help unlock the power of belonging. And I just want to say thank you for participating and being present with me and actually thinking about how you can make a difference. And I really encourage you to think about what steps you could take coming out of today through this 2-day conference, which I am so proud to be a part of. And I want to thank the World Happiness Fest and Foundation, the World Happiness Foundation as well, for an amazing 2-day event. And before I jump to questions, I do just want to say, follow along if you want to continue to learn together. I also post out regular blog posts that have different ideas and thinking around inclusion, around happiness and joy, around leadership at my website. And I also post things on Instagram and Twitter at Ignite Happy. And certainly LinkedIn is a great place to follow as well, as I plan to release my book on LinkedIn in I would say next year. So when I do release, I'll probably be on all my venues, but that's certainly a place where I'll be. So certainly follow along there. And if you have a question and you need something from me, feel free to just reach out. I'm at WG@ignitehappy.com. Just so you know that WG is that watermelon guy, that one-eyed smile, labeled it watermelon guy because it was watermelon ice. And anyway, that's why it's WG. But if you need any help, let me know. If you want to participate in engagement together, just reach out. I'm happy to help out. I'm here to help you and get vulnerable with you. So again, thank you. I'm going to just see if we can see if there are any questions. Now, I did see a question about learning proper etiquette, appropriate word choice, and better understanding of pronouns. It's a great question. I think, like a lot of this, is to step in and research what's out there, what you can learn, what you can embrace with. Like for me, I tend to have in a lot of my when I'm on some of my social sites, I'll say he, him, because I'm describing what my pronouns are, and I'm also showing a level of respect. I value people's pronouns and how they view themselves. I honor that. I honor orientation. And I would just invite you to really research that. I don't have an article in mind. If anybody does, I'd offer you to add it into the chat as maybe there's a good article out there for folks to jump into. I would be open to that too.
Hi, Darrin.
Hello.
Hi, this is Rashmi. I am a chief. Are you able? Like, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
So I am a chief happiness practitioner and a happiness coach.
that's awesome.
Yes, and your stories will stay with me forever.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Thank you for sharing. Thank
It's
you for
beautiful.
sharing that. I'm a big believer of happiness, as you could probably tell, and I welcome folks that are willing to say they're a chief happiness officer, because in certain parts, people might not recognize that yet, that we need joy, we need happiness to not only belong, but to thrive in this world. And the more companies, the more communities that are welcoming this, we're all going to be better off. And I can promise you this: there's better results if people are focused on results. Like myself, turning upside down, I think companies and communities could turn themselves up down if we welcome this a bit more. And I appreciate your comments on that.
Definitely.
Thank you. Or any other questions? Or I appreciate all the kind comments. You guys are amazing. I feel the love. I feel belonging. I feel good about being vulnerable, because I could be honest, like it's tough being vulnerable, and I think we could all relate. We're all human, and I really invite you to take a chance. Take a chance to be different, and that might be just you being yourself. And I know you'll be amazing. And if you have any questions, reach out. And if you have any feedback, I want to get better. If there's anything you felt I said it could be taken the wrong way, I respect that, and I need to continue to learn. And I think we're all in this learning journey together. And once we realize that we're not so certain of everything, we could actually welcome each other to really unlock a lot together. And thank you very much for participating. I love you all, and I wish you the best in the rest of 2020, and looking for an amazing 2021, and hopefully some normality, and stay strong through the uncertainty, and look from within, because there's a lot of power there. Okay, take care.